This will quiet your mind in a way nothing else has. What you are about to hear is not a temporary escape from your life, but a doorway back into the truth of it. We often move through our days feeling like subjects of a chaotic universe, reacting to heartbreaks that feel like accidents and delays that feel like punishments. We look at the timeline of our existence and see a messy sketch drawn by a distracted hand. But the ancient masters discovered something 25 centuries ago that changes everything. There is no such thing as a coincidence. Welcome to this sanctuary of clarity. You have arrived at this exact moment because a part of your soul is tired of being a passenger to chaos. For the next 90 minutes, the world outside will continue its frantic dance. But here, those demands no longer hold authority over you. We are not here to drift into a fog of unawareness or to seek the refuge of sleep. We are here to achieve a state of alert stillness. We are here to sharpen our vision until the fog of confusion finally lifts and the architecture of your fate becomes visible. In the eyes of Buddhist wisdom, life is not a series of random collisions. It is a masterpiece of divine architecture. Every pillar, every shadow, and even the jagged cracks in the foundation have been placed with an intricate precision that the ego cannot yet comprehend. Think of a weaver at a loom from the back. The threads look like a chaotic mess of knots and stray ends. This is how we usually view our lives during a crisis. But the architect within you is looking at the front. From that perspective, the rejection that shattered your confidence was the exact shade of blue needed to highlight the gold of your eventual resilience. Nothing is wasted. Everything belongs. The universe isn't punishing you, it's preparing you for a version of yourself that you haven't met yet. But to see this design, you must first become still. Not the stillness of a stone, but the stillness of a mountain lake, clear, deep, and highly observant. Let us begin by establishing your anchor. You don't need to achieve anything or go anywhere. Simply acknowledge the physical vessel that has carried you through every storm. Straighten your spine slightly, as if a silver thread is pulling you toward the sky, and feel the texture of your breath. We aren't using this breath to drift away. We are using it to wake up. This is the three-breath recognition. Recognizing the body, recognizing the mind, and finally, recognizing the connection. As we journey through the 8 lessons ahead, I invite you to set down the heavy luggage of why me. You are not a victim of a chaotic sketch. You are the inhabitant of a masterpiece in progress. Stay present, stay awake. Let us begin the journey into the architecture of your soul. Chapter 1. The Sacred Cracks. The Architecture of Resilience. You have arrived at the first corridor of your inner architecture. You have set down the heavy backpack of the world's expectations, and for a few moments, you have felt the rhythmic pulse of your own breath, the anchor that keeps you here, in this space of lucid presence. As we begin to walk through these internal halls, we encounter a feature of the design that most people spend their entire lives trying to hide. It is not a polished marble pillar or a grand sweeping archway. Instead, it is something we usually try to plaster over or ignore entirely. It is a crack. In the modern world, we are conditioned to fear the break. We carry the mental burden of perfectionism like a suit of iron armor, believing that to be successful, to be lovable, or to be whole, we must be seamless. We spend an incredible amount of energy trying to project a life that has no fractures, no scars, and no moments of falling apart. We think of our identity as a glass structure, beautiful only as long as it is pristine, but ruined the moment a single line appears on its surface. But the ancient masters understood a deeper truth about the architecture of a soul. If a building were entirely sealed, no light could ever enter the rooms. If the vessel of your spirit were without a single flaw, it would remain closed, hard, and incapable of the expansion that true wisdom requires. Today, we address the quiet exhaustion that comes from trying to be the unbreakable self. We acknowledge the fatigue of holding the walls up when the foundation feels like it is shifting. We are here to see that the breaking is not the end of the design. It is the beginning of its most profound transformation. Imagine for a moment a small monastery tucked into the mist-covered folds of a remote mountain range. The air here is sharp and carries the scent of damp cedar and the faint, bitter trail of incense. In this space lived a young monk named Jiro. Jiro was the embodiment of diligence. He cleaned the meditation hall until the dark wood glowed like still water. He sat in meditation for hours, his spine as straight as a bamboo stalk, never allowing his gaze to flicker. Jiro's deepest desire was to be the perfect student, to be a vessel of the teachings that contained no leaks, no errors, and no weaknesses. He equated his worth with his ability to remain flawless. One evening, while the light was fading into a deep, cool blue, Jiro was preparing tea for his master. His hands, slightly stiff from the mountain cold, reached for the master's most prized tea bowl, a vessel centuries old, with a glaze that looked like the summer sky caught in clay. As he moved, his fingers slipped. A sharp, crystalline sound echoed through the stone room. The bowl hit the floor and shattered into 5 jagged pieces. In that instant, Jiro felt a cold wave of devastation. In his mind, he hadn't just broken a bowl. He had broken himself. He stared at the shards, and in the heavy silence that followed, he felt his own sense of self-worth fragmenting. He felt the shame of being clumsy, the fear of being seen as unworthy, and the desperate urge to hide the evidence of his failure. He wanted to go back in time, to reach out and catch the bowl before it fell, to return to the version of himself that was still perfect. But the master entered the room. He did not shout. He did not lament the loss of the priceless artifact. Instead, he knelt by the shards, his robes rustling softly like dry leaves on a temple floor. He picked up a piece and held it to the fading light. He looked at Jiro and said, "Do not mourn the break. The bowl is not gone. It is simply beginning its most important journey." The master took the shards to a small, quiet workshop. He did not use clear, hidden glue to mask the damage. Instead, he mixed a rare lacquer with pure, powdered gold. With a steady hand and a heart full of presence, he joined the jagged edges back together. When the work was finished, the tea bowl was no longer a uniform sky blue. It was now mapped with brilliant, glowing veins of gold. The cracks were not hidden, they were highlighted. They were now the most striking, most beautiful part of the vessel. The bowl was stronger than it had ever been, and it possessed a story that a perfect bowl could never tell. It had become Kintsugi. We are all, in many ways, like Jiro. We stand over the broken pieces of our lives, a career that ended in burnout, a relationship that dissolved into silence, a health crisis that stripped us of our vitality, and we whisper to ourselves, "I am ruined." In our culture, we treat the breaking as a tragedy to be avoided at all costs. When we experience a period of deep sorrow or mental struggle, we feel like a defective version of ourselves. We think we need to get back to normal, back to the seamless, uncracked version of who we were before the world touched us. But the wisdom of the gold reminds us that there is no back to normal. There is only the becoming. The cracks in your life are not flaws in the architecture. They are the exact places where the gold of wisdom is meant to be poured. Think of the most compassionate people you have ever met. Think of the ones whose presence feels like a warm fire on a cold night. Did those people become who they are through a life of effortless ease? No, they became that way because they were broken open. In that shattering, they found the capacity to feel the pain of others. Their cracks became the windows through which their empathy now shines. Your burnout was not a sign of your weakness. It was the architecture of your soul demanding a renovation because the old structure was too small for the truth of who you are. Your heartbreak was not an accident. It was the cracking of the shell so that the seed of a deeper, more resilient love could finally take root. As you sit here now, in this state of quiet awareness, I invite you to look inward. Do not turn away from the parts of yourself that feel fractured. Bring to your mind a crack in your own life, something you have been trying to hide, or something that makes you feel ashamed. Perhaps it is a mistake you made, or a loss that still feels jagged and sharp. Can you look at it right now, not as a sign of your failure, but as a space that is waiting for the gold? Consider this. Who would you be if you stopped trying to be perfect? Feel the relief in your chest as you ask that question. What if your value doesn't come from being whole, but from being authentic? What if the very thing you are trying to hide is the very thing that makes you most beautiful to the world? Let us practice a mental realignment together. Imagine the part of yourself that feels most broken right now. See it as a jagged line in a beautiful vessel. As you breathe in, imagine the air is a liquid, glowing gold, the light of pure awareness and self-compassion. As you hold that breath for a moment, see that golden light flowing into the crack. It isn't erasing the fracture, it is honoring it. It is filling the empty space with the value of your own presence. And as you exhale, imagine that gold hardening, making you stronger at the very point where you were once most fragile. Understand that this gold is not something you have to find outside of yourself. The gold is your own attention. When you stop running from your pain and start sitting with it in this lucid presence, you are performing Kintsugi on your own soul. You are saying, "This happened. It hurt. But I am still here, and I am more valuable because I survived it." You are not the same person who began this journey a few minutes ago. You have started to see the architecture of your fate through a different lens. You are beginning to understand that the catastrophes of your past were actually the moments the architect chose to use the most precious materials to rebuild you. You are a masterpiece in progress. The gold is still wet. The repair is still happening. Be patient with the drying process. Do not rush to be healed before you have learned what the wound has to teach you. But as we learn to accept our cracks, we often encounter a new kind of challenge. Once we decide to heal, we want it to happen instantly. We want the transformation to be as fast as the world around us. But the soul does not move at the speed of the internet. It moves at the speed of nature. In our next chapter, we will look at what happens when the architecture of fate seems to come to a complete standstill. We will explore the mystery of the underground season, the time when nothing seems to be happening on the surface, but everything is changing underneath. If you have ever felt like you are stuck in a waiting room, or that your life is on an agonizing pause, then stay with this awareness. The next lesson is for the part of you that is tired of waiting. Chapter 2. The Bamboo Wisdom, the Secret Architecture of Delay. As you sit here, perhaps you can still feel the lingering warmth of the golden repair we explored in our last chapter. You have begun to honor your cracks. You have acknowledged that the shattering was not the end, but the beginning of a more resilient design. But as the gold begins to set, a new kind of restlessness often arises. It is the anxiety of the in-between. You have accepted the break, and you have started the healing, but now, nothing seems to be moving. You look around at the world, and it feels as though everyone else is sprinting while you are standing still. You are in the waiting room of your own life. This is the specific mental burden we address now. The fear of being left behind, the exhaustion of the not yet, and the quiet suspicion that your delay is actually a denial. In the architecture of fate, there is a season that many of us mistake for failure. It is the season of the underground. It is the time when the blueprints are drawn, the foundation is set, and the roots are stretching, yet to the naked eye, there is only a patch of bare, silent earth. We carry the heavy weight of hurry. We feel the pressure to produce, to manifest, and to achieve at a pace that is fundamentally at odds with the rhythm of the soul. We forget that the most magnificent structures require the deepest foundations. To understand this, let us travel to a quiet valley where the earth is rich and dark, and the air smells of impending rain and turned soil. Imagine a farmer. He is a man who understands the language of the seasons, a man who has learned that you cannot shout at a seed to make it grow faster. One morning, he plants a very specific type of seed, the Chinese bamboo. He clears the ground. He digs a small hole in the cool, damp earth. He places the seed inside and covers it with care. Every day he returns. He carries water from the nearby stream, the rhythmic splash of the bucket the only sound in the morning silence. He pulls the weeds. He watches. A year passes. He has watered the ground faithfully, but there is nothing. Not a sprout, not a single green leaf breaking through the crust of the soil. His neighbors pass by and smile sympathetically. They are harvesting corn. They are picking beans. Their progress is visible. Their success is measurable. But the farmer returns to his bare patch of earth. A second year passes. The farmer continues his ritual. The water hits the dirt with the same steady rhythm. The sun rises and sets. Still, the ground remains stubbornly empty. A third year, a fourth year. Imagine the mental fortitude required to continue tending to something that shows absolutely no sign of life. Imagine the whispers of doubt that must visit him in the quiet hours. Is the seed dead? Am I wasting my life? Was I wrong to believe in this path? Then, in the fifth year, something miraculous happened. In a single morning, a tiny green shoot pierces the surface. And then, as if making up for lost time, the bamboo begins to grow. It doesn't just grow, it explodes. It rises 30, 50, 80 feet into the sky in a matter of weeks. The world calls it a sudden success. The neighbors marvel at the miracle. But the farmer knows better. He knows the bamboo didn't grow 80 feet in 6 weeks. It grew 80 feet in 5 years and 6 weeks. If it had not spent those 4 quiet, invisible years stretching its roots deep into the dark womb of the earth, it would have collapsed the moment it tried to reach for the sun. The delay wasn't a lack of progress. It was the most essential part of the architecture. It was the anchoring. Pause for a moment and breathe into that image. Consider the bare earth seasons of your own life. Think of the projects that haven't taken off, the healing that feels stagnant, or the relationship that seems to be in a perpetual state of not quite there. Ask yourself, what if you aren't stuck? What if you are simply in your 4th year of watering the bamboo? What if your roots are currently growing in ways that will eventually support a height you can't even imagine yet? In our modern life, especially in the Western world, we are obsessed with the shoot, and we ignore the root. We want the 80-foot rise without the 5-year anchor. We see a delay in our plans, a job we didn't get, a move that fell through, a creative block that won't lift, and we interpret it as the universe saying no. But what if not yet is actually a form of sacred protection? Buddhist wisdom teaches us that timing is not a matter of clockwork, but a matter of alignment. In the spiritual realm, readiness is everything. Think of a fruit picked too early. It is bitter, and it lacks the nutrients it was meant to provide. Think of a bridge built on sand. It may look beautiful for a day, but it cannot survive the storm. Perhaps the universe is withholding that big break right now because your current self is not yet strong enough to carry the weight of that success. Perhaps that relationship is being delayed because there is still a pocket of self-worth within you that needs to be filled with your own gold before you can truly receive the love of another. When life says not yet, it is often life saying, I love you too much to give you what you want before you are ready to hold it. It is the architect ensuring that the foundation can sustain the spire. I remember a period in my own life when I felt completely stalled. I had a vision for my work, a dream I held like a flickering candle, and I beat against the doors of opportunity until my hands were bruised. Every door stayed locked. I felt forgotten. I felt like a failure. But years later, when the path finally opened, I looked back and realized that if I had been given what I wanted back then, I would have been crushed by it. I didn't have the perspective. I didn't have the character. I didn't have the roots. The delay wasn't an obstacle. It was a curriculum. Take a deep breath and feel the weight of that truth. If you are in a season of waiting, you are being invited to refine not just what you are doing, but who you are becoming. This is the art of trusting the unfolding. Let us practice a grounding exercise to help you move from a state of anxious waiting to a state of rooted presence. Sit with your spine tall, but let your muscles be soft. Imagine your body is like that bamboo seed resting in the nourishing darkness of the earth. As you breathe in, don't imagine the air going up into your head. Instead, visualize the breath traveling down. Feel it move through your chest, past your navel, down into your hips, and through your feet. Imagine that with every inhale, you are sending roots deep into the ground beneath you. These roots are thick, strong, and silent. They are seeking the water of wisdom that lives in the depths of your being. As you hold the breath for a moment, feel the stability of being anchored. You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to prove anything. You are being held by the earth. As you exhale, let go of the when and the how. Release the desperate need for a sign of growth on the surface. Whisper to yourself, "My roots are growing." Continue this for a few cycles. Inhale deep into the earth. Hold the stillness. Exhale the rush. The quiet season is not a waste of time. It is a sacred clearing. It is where you learn the difference between ambition and alignment. Ambition wants to climb the mountain as fast as possible. Alignment wants to ensure that every step is taken with a clear heart and a steady mind. When you stop fighting the delay, you begin to notice the subtle gifts of the waiting room. You notice the way the light hits the wall. You hear the birds you were too busy to listen to before. You start to ask deeper questions. Who am I when I'm not achieving? What is left of me when the world isn't applauding? These are the questions that turn a hollow life into a rich architecture. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be to develop the strength for what is coming next. The architect of your fate hasn't forgotten the blueprint. The materials are being gathered. The ground is being prepared. As we settle into the peace of our roots, we begin to realize that part of the growing process involves making space. To grow upward, the bamboo must push aside the rocks. To grow inward, we must often let go of the things we thought we needed, the old identities, the outdated dreams, the people who no longer match our frequency. In our next chapter, we will look at the grace of the falling leaf. We will explore how to let go of what is leaving your life, not with bitterness, but with the understanding that every loss is a sacred pruning. If you have been struggling to hold on to something that is slipping away, stay in this rooted presence. The next lesson will show you how to open your hands without losing your soul. Chapter 3. The Grace of Letting Go. The Architecture of Pruning. We have traveled together through the dark, nurturing silence of the underground. You have learned the wisdom of the bamboo, that your period of waiting was not a stagnant void, but a sacred anchoring. You have felt your roots stretching deep, seeking the hidden waters of resilience, preparing you for a height you have yet to reach. But as we move from the foundation of the earth into the open air of the present moment, a new sensation begins to stir within the architecture of your life. You may notice that as your roots grow stronger, the branches above are beginning to feel heavy. There is a specific kind of weight we carry in this modern world. It is not the weight of the work we do, but the weight of the things we are desperately trying to keep attached to us. In our earlier moments, we spoke of the unbreakable self. Now, we must speak of the grasping self. This is the part of us that believes our safety is found in what we possess: our titles, our relationships, our long-held dreams, and the versions of ourselves that we have long since outgrown. We move through the world with our fists clenched, holding on to the past, as if it were the only thing keeping us tethered to reality. We fear that if we let go of what is slipping away, we will be left with nothing but an empty, echoing space. But within the quiet wisdom of the natural world, there is a different law at play. To grow, the architecture must be pruned. To survive the winter, the tree must learn the grace of loss. Imagine a high, wind-swept ridge where an ancient oak tree stands, its roots locked into the granite heart of the mountain. This tree has witnessed centuries of sunrises. It has felt the sting of ice and the heat of droughts that cracked the very earth beneath it. At the foot of this oak lived a monk named Kaito. Kaito loved the oak most in the height of summer. He loved the density of its emerald canopy, the way the leaves created a world of cool, dappled light, where he could sit in contemplation. To Kaito, the fullness of the tree was its perfection. It was a symbol of abundance, of life at its peak. He would look up through the branches and feel that as long as the tree remained green and heavy with leaves, all was well with the world. But as the year turned, the air grew sharp. The sun began to pull away, leaving the afternoons thin and golden. One evening, Kaito sat by the tree and watched as a single leaf, once vibrant and green, now brittle and stained with copper, detached itself from the branch. It drifted slowly, dancing on the cold breath of the wind, until it landed silently on the frost-covered grass. Kaito felt a sudden pang of sorrow. To him, this leaf was a loss. Over the next few weeks, the sorrow deepened. Every gust of wind brought a shower of gold and brown. The tree he loved was becoming skeletal. Its perfection was being stripped away. He saw the bare branches as a sign of death, a betrayal of the summer's promise. He found himself wanting to reach out and catch the leaves, to somehow pin them back onto the wood, to stop the unraveling of the canopy. His master, an old man whose skin was as weathered as the oak's bark, found Kaito staring at the half-empty branches with tears in his eyes. "Master," Kaito whispered, "why must the tree suffer such a loss? It gave so much shade, it was so full of life. Now it looks as if it is losing everything that made it beautiful." The master placed a hand on the rough, cold trunk. "Kaito, look closer. Do you think the tree is grieving? Listen to the wind through the bare wood. The tree is not losing, it is releasing. If it tried to hold onto every leaf through the coming snow, the weight of the ice would snap its greatest limbs. The leaves have finished their work. They have fed the tree all summer. Now, their final gift is to fall, to rot, and to become the very soil that will feed the roots for the spring to come. The tree does not cling to what was. It trusts what is coming. It sheds to preserve its heartwood." Kaito looked up, and for the first time he didn't see a dying tree. He saw a master of architecture, intelligently removing the heavy, the old, and the unnecessary, so that the core, the part that truly endures, could survive the silence of the winter. We are often like Kaito, standing at the base of our own lives, mourning the falling leaves. In our modern experience, loss is almost always viewed as a wound or a failure. When a relationship that defined us for years begins to unravel, we feel like the architecture of our heart is collapsing. When a job that gave us status and security is taken away, we feel as though we have lost our ground. When a version of ourselves, perhaps our youth, our health, or a dream we've nurtured since childhood starts to fade, we experience it as a cruel theft. But Buddhist wisdom invites you to see this through the eyes of the oak. What if the loss you are experiencing is actually a clearing? What if the universe is not punishing you by removing these things, but is instead intelligently pruning your life because you are about to enter a new level of being? We often outgrow our circumstances before we are brave enough to leave them. We cling to people who no longer match our frequency, or to roles that have become a prison for our spirit, simply because the emptiness of the unknown feels more dangerous than the heaviness of the known. We hold on until our hands bleed, not realizing that the pain we feel is not from the loss itself, but from our own resistance to the release. Think of the burnout so many of us experience today. Often, burnout is the soul's way of shedding leaves that have become toxic or redundant. It is the architecture of your life saying, "You cannot carry this much weight into the next season." The stress you feel is the tension between the soul that wants to be bare and the mind that is trying to glue the dead leaves back on. In the architecture of fate, nothing true can ever be lost. Only that which is temporary, that which has fulfilled its purpose, or that which no longer fits the expanding design of your soul is allowed to fall. When a door closes or a person walks away, they are making space. They are creating the sacred void where something more aligned, something that matches the new you can eventually take root. As you remain in this space of alert presence, let us look at the leaves in your own life. Do not judge them, just observe them. Bring to mind something that has recently left your life, or something that you feel is currently slipping through your fingers. It could be a person, a dream, or even a belief you once had about yourself. Instead of labeling this as a loss, try to see it as a release. What weight is being lifted from your branches by this departure? How much lighter would your heart feel if you stopped trying to catch the leaf? Look at your open hands in your mind's eye. If you were to stop clenching them right now, what is the first thing that would fall away? How much energy are you spending just to keep that one thing attached to you? Imagine the relief of simply letting it touch the ground. To help your nervous system move from the clinging state to the releasing state, we will practice a simple mental alignment based on the rhythm of the autumn oak. Sit in a way that allows your spine to be neutral and your chest to be open. Place your hands on your lap, palms facing upward, and completely relaxed. An open palm is a powerful signal to your mind that you are safe, that there is nothing to fight for and nothing to hoard. Breathe in slowly through your nose. As you do, imagine you are pulling energy up from your roots. Just like the tree draws sap into its heartwood, feel the center of your chest expand with this nourishing presence. Hold the breath at the top for just a few seconds. In this stillness, acknowledge that you are whole, right now, exactly as you are, regardless of what you possess or what you have lost. You are the tree, not the leaves. Now, exhale slowly through your mouth with a soft, steady sigh, like the wind through bare branches. As you exhale, visualize a leaf representing a worry, a person, or a past version of yourself drifting away from you. See it land softly on the earth. It is not gone. It is just returning to the source to become soil for your future. Stay empty for a moment before your next breath. Notice that in the emptiness, you are still here. You did not disappear when the leaf fell. You did not become less when the branch became bare. Repeat this internally. I release what no longer serves the architecture of my soul. I trust the clearing. As you settle back into your natural rhythm, notice the quality of the silence around you. It feels a bit lighter, doesn't it? The tree is not afraid of being bare. It knows that the bareness is the only way to see the stars through the branches. It knows that by letting go of the old, it is actually saving its life for the new growth that only winter's preparation can bring. You are learning the grace of the fall. You are beginning to trust that the architect only removes what would otherwise break you in the coming storm. You are making space for a truth that is deeper than any possession or any title. But once the space is cleared, once the leaves have fallen and the branches are bare, we often face a new kind of confrontation. In that space, we come face to face with the word no. We encounter the closed doors that we didn't choose, the opportunities that didn't just fall away, but seemed to slam shut in our faces. Is a closed door a wall, or is it a signpost? In our next chapter, we will explore the mystery of rejection. We will move from the grace of letting go to the wisdom of redirection. We will learn why the most painful no you ever heard was actually the loudest. Yes, the universe ever whispered to your soul. Chapter 4. Redirection, not rejection, the architecture of the closed door. We have learned to stand in the clearing. You have witnessed the grace of the falling leaf, realizing that the architecture of your life is constantly being pruned of what is heavy and outdated. You have felt the lightness that comes when you stop trying to glue the dead leaves back onto the branches. But as you stand in that open space, looking toward the horizon of your future, you inevitably encounter a new kind of structure. It is a wall. It is a gate that will not budge. It is the cold, hard reality of the word no. In this stage of our inner journey, we encounter the specific mental burden of rejection. For many of us, rejection feels like a final judgment. When the job application is declined, when the partner walks away, or when the creative project we poured our heart into is met with silence. We don't just see a closed door, we see a mirror reflecting our own supposed inadequacy. We feel as though we have been excluded from the design. We think the architect has made a mistake, or worse, that we have been forgotten entirely. But here, in this space of wakeful clarity, we must ask a deeper question. Is a closed door a wall, or is it a signpost? Is the universe denying you, or is it simply moving the obstacles so you can finally find the path that was actually meant for your feet? To understand the difference between what the ego wants and what the soul needs, we must travel to the foot of a great mountain. Imagine a young scholar named Kenji. Kenji has spent his entire life studying the ancient texts. He is brilliant, disciplined, and fueled by a singular ambition to study at the Temple of the Golden Peak. This temple is said to be the highest point of wisdom, and for Kenji, being accepted there is the only thing that will prove his worth to his family and to himself. He has mapped the route. He has memorized the gatekeeper's questions. He has built his entire identity around this one destination. One morning, as a sharp silver mist clings to the valley floor, Kenji begins his final ascent. The air smells of crushed pine needles and damp earth. The only sound is the rhythmic scuff of his sandals against the stone. But as he rounds the final bend, he stops. A massive landslide has occurred. The path to the Golden Peak is not just blocked, it is gone. A sheer cliff of jagged rock and fallen timber stands where the trail used to be. Kenji is devastated. He screams at the mountain. He tries to climb the loose rubble, but the rocks slide beneath his feet, bruising his hands and tearing his robes. He sits in the dirt, the silence of the mountain feeling like a mockery of his efforts. He feels rejected by the very path he worshipped. In his mind, his life is over. The no of the mountain is a sentence of failure. As the sun begins to dip, casting long purple shadows across the ridge, an old man carrying a bundle of dry sticks walks out from a hidden side trail, a path so narrow Kenji hadn't even noticed it. The old man stops and looks at the broken scholar. The peak is closed, Kenji sobs. The mountain has rejected me. The old man smiles, his eyes crinkling like worn parchment. The mountain does not reject, young one. It only redirects. You were so busy looking at the peak that you didn't notice the fire starting on the other side. Had you been on that path an hour ago, you would be trapped in the smoke. The landslide didn't block your way, it saved your life. And besides, the old man pointed to the narrow trail behind him. This path leads to the hidden spring. The water there doesn't just teach you about wisdom, it lets you taste it. Kenji looked at his bruised hands and then at the narrow, humble path. He realized that his no was actually a yes to a journey he wasn't yet wise enough to choose for himself. In our modern lives, we are often exactly like Kenji. We have a golden peak, a specific outcome we are obsessed with. We call it our dream job, our soulmate, or our 5-year plan. This is what the ego wants. The ego craves the peak because the peak offers status, certainty, and a feeling of being better than. The ego views every closed door as a personal insult, a wall that must be scaled at all costs. When we are rejected, the ego tells us stories of our unworthiness. But your soul has a different agenda. The soul does not care about the golden peak if the climb requires you to betray your true nature. The soul understands that the architecture of your life is not built on a straight line. It is built on a spiral. Sometimes a door must slam shut to protect you from a fire you cannot yet see. Sometimes an opportunity must slip through your fingers so that your hands are empty enough to catch something that actually fits your frequency. Think of a time in your life when you were denied something you desperately wanted. Perhaps at the time, it felt like the end of the world. But look closer now, from this place of stillness. Did that rejection create a space? Did that no eventually lead you to a yes that you never would have found otherwise? We spend so much of our energy trying to break down doors that were never meant for us. We exhaust ourselves trying to force a yes out of people, places, and situations that are fundamentally out of alignment with our deeper becoming. Buddhist wisdom suggests that when we encounter resistance, we should not immediately reach for a hammer. We should reach for our breath. We should stop and ask, is this a wall? Or is the universe asking me to look for the hidden spring? True peace comes when you realize that rejection is the universe's way of saying, not this way. Something truer is waiting. Let us bring this understanding into your physical being. Take a moment to adjust your posture. Let your spine be as steady as that mountain, but let your heart be as open as the valley. I want you to think of a closed door in your life right now. Perhaps it's a person who isn't calling back. Perhaps it's a goal that keeps moving further away. Notice how your body reacts when you think of it. Do your shoulders tighten? Does your breath become shallow? This is the ego preparing for battle. This is the part of you that wants to climb the landslide. Now, take a slow, deep breath in. As you inhale, imagine that the word no is not a solid wall. Imagine it is a mist shifting and moving. As you exhale, say to yourself internally, I release the peak. I seek the path. Feel the difference in that shift. When you stop fighting the rejection, the energy you were using to scream at the wall is suddenly returned to you. That energy is now available for your redirection. We will practice a technique called the redirected gaze. Inhale for a count of 4, focusing on the closed door in your mind. Acknowledge it. Give it permission to be closed. It isn't a mistake. It's a finished chapter. Hold for a count of 4. In this pause, realize that you are still here. You did not disappear because the door closed. You are the architect, and you are standing in the hallway of infinite possibilities. Exhale for a count of 6. As you breathe out, imagine yourself turning your back to that door, not in anger, but in curiosity. Visualize a narrow, hidden trail opening up to your left or right. It looks different than you expected. It might be quieter, humbler, or more mysterious. Repeat this. Inhale the no. Hold the I am. Exhale the new way. You see, the universe does not trade in punishment. It trades in alignment. Every rejection is a sacred repositioning. The architect is moving you across the floor plan of your life, placing you exactly where your light can shine most effectively. If you are standing in a place of disappointment right now, know that you are being spared from a path that would have eventually fractured your spirit. As you settle back into your natural rhythm, notice the quality of your presence. You are not a victim of a closed door. You are a traveler who has just been given a better map. The landslide was a mercy. The silence was a redirection. You can stop pounding on the gate now. Your hands have more important work to do. But as we learn to follow these new hidden paths, we realize that we don't walk them alone. We encounter others. Some walk with us for miles, others only for a few steps. In our next chapter, we will explore the architecture of our connections. We will learn the wisdom of the guest house, why some people enter our lives like a sudden storm, and why their departure is just as meaningful as their arrival. If you have ever been hurt by someone leaving, or confused by a brief connection that left a deep mark, stay in this space of redirection. The next lesson will show you how to see every encounter as a sacred appointment. Chapter 5. The Guest House. The Architects of the Heart. As we move forward from the landslide and the closed doors of our previous chapter, you may notice that the hidden path you are now walking feels a bit lighter. By accepting that rejection is merely a sacred redirection, you have emptied your backpack of the heavy stones of resentment and the exhausting weight of what if. You are walking more freely now, your eyes no longer fixed on a distant, blocked peak, but on the rich, unfolding terrain of the present moment. But as the architecture of your life continues to reveal itself, you encounter a different kind of complexity. It is not made of wood or stone, but of echoes, voices, and memories. It is the architecture of your connections. In this space of wakeful clarity, we must address a specific mental burden that keeps so many of us trapped in a cycle of silent grief. It is the burden of the unfinished relationship. It is the sharp pain of the person who promised to stay and then left without warning. It is the lingering bitterness toward the mentor who let you down, the friend who vanished when the shadows grew long, or the partner who walked out and left a void where a shared future used to be. In the modern world, we often view these people as accidents or worse, as intruders who came into our lives only to steal our peace or waste our years. We carry the scars of their departure like evidence of our own unworthiness. We think, if I were better, they would have stayed. We treat the ending of a connection as a structural failure, a flaw in the building of our happiness. But Buddhist wisdom offers a much more profound perspective. It suggests that in the architecture of your fate, there is no such thing as a random encounter. Every person who crosses your threshold, whether they stay for 40 years or 40 seconds, is a guest architect. They were invited by the universe to help build a specific room in your soul that you could not have constructed alone. To understand this, let us travel to a humble tea house perched on a high ridge, where the wind sings through the chimes and the air is thick with the scent of roasted barley and damp earth. Imagine an ancient monk named Ryokan. Ryokan lived alone in a small hut, but he kept his door unlocked and a pot of tea always warming over the embers. He called his home the guest house of the 10,000 things. One rainy evening, as the silver needles of the storm hammered against the thatched roof, a traveler burst through the door. He was a man of high status, dressed in soaked silks, his face twisted with rage and exhaustion. He had been robbed on the road. He had lost his horses and his pride. He sat by Ryokan's fire and spent the entire night complaining. He cursed the heavens, he blamed his servants, and he insulted Ryokan's simple life. He was a difficult guest, loud, arrogant, and full of toxic energy. Ryokan simply listened. He poured the tea with a steady hand. He adjusted the fire to keep the man warm. He offered the traveler his only blanket. In the morning, the rain stopped. The world was washed clean, and the air smelled of wet pine and renewal. The traveler stood up, didn't even say thank you, and walked out the door without looking back. Ryokan stood at the threshold, watching the man's figure disappear into the morning mist. A young student, who had been watching from the corner, was indignant. "Master," the student said, "that man was a thief of your peace. He took your tea, your warmth, and your time, and he gave you nothing but bitterness in return. What a waste of a night." Ryokan turned, his eyes reflecting the calm of the morning sky. "He did not give me nothing, Ryokan said softly. He gave me the opportunity to practice my patience. He showed me where my own irritation was still hiding. He was a mirror. He came to build the wall of my equanimity a little higher. He has fulfilled his purpose, and now he has gone. He was not a waste, he was a teacher. A week later, a different guest arrived. It was a traveling musician who played a flute made of bone. The music was so beautiful, it seemed to make the stars lean closer to the earth. For 3 days, Ryokan and the musician sat in a silence that felt like a prayer. They shared meals and watched the moon rise over the ridge. But on the 4th day, the musician too stood up and left. Ryokan did not beg him to stay. He did not ask when he would return. He simply bowed as the musician walked away. Every guest, Ryokan told his student, is sent by the great architect. Some come to test the strength of your foundations. Some come to paint the walls of your heart with joy. Some come to tear down a room that has become too small for you. But none are meant to stay forever. They are all contractors. When their work is done, they must move on to the next house. If you try to lock the door to keep them inside, the guest house becomes a prison. If you keep the door open, it remains a sanctuary. Consider the difficult guests in your own life. Think of the boss who was relentlessly demanding, the partner who was emotionally distant, or the friend who betrayed your trust. In our modern culture, we are taught to label these people as toxic and to wish we had never met them. We carry the waste of those years like a heavy stone in our backpack. But what if you looked at them through the eyes of Ryokan? The person who broke your heart, did they not in that breaking force you to discover a depth of resilience you didn't know you possessed? Did they not teach you the boundaries you now hold sacred? The person who ignored your worth, did they not drive you to finally stop seeking validation outside and start finding it within? They were not intruders. They were guest architects. They came to help you build the compassion wing of your soul, or the boundary pillar, or the self-love vault. And once that part of your inner architecture was finished, they had to leave. Their departure wasn't a rejection of you. It was simply the completion of their contract. When you realize this, the bitterness begins to evaporate. You stop being a victim of abandonment and start being the grateful owner of a more complex and beautiful inner world. You are not lonely because people have left. You are spacious. You have more room now to host the next guest, or perhaps to finally enjoy the silence of your own company. Take a deep breath and let this truth settle. Let your spine be steady and let your heart feel like that open tea house on the ridge. I want you to think of someone who left your life and left behind a feeling of unfinished business or pain. Instead of seeing the gap they left, look at the room they helped build. What do you know now that you didn't know before you met them? What strength did you have to grow because they walked away? Take a moment to acknowledge that strength. It belongs to you now. They cannot take it back. Now, ask yourself, am I holding the door shut, trying to keep someone in who has already finished their work? Imagine yourself walking to the door of your heart. Imagine opening it wide. Imagine bowing to that person as they walk into the mist. You don't have to like what they did, but can you thank the universe for the lesson they inadvertently provided? To ground this wisdom in your body, let us practice a mental exercise called the sanctuary breath. Sit comfortably. Place your right hand over your heart and your left hand on your lap, palm open and facing upward. First, the inhale of welcome. Breathe in deeply through your nose. Imagine you are opening the front door of your heart. As the air enters, visualize a light filling your inner space, a light that says, "All experiences are welcome here." Second, the hold of presence. Hold the breath for a moment. In this stillness, see the faces of those who have passed through your life, the kind ones and the harsh ones. See them all as guest architects in your landscape. They were all sent for a reason. Third, the exhale of gratitude. Exhale slowly through your mouth. As you do, imagine a golden thread connecting you to those who have left. Whisper internally, "Thank you for the lesson. You are free to go." Feel the tension leaving your chest as you release the need for them to stay, for them to apologize, or for the story to be different. Finally, the silence of the empty room. Stay empty for a few seconds before your next breath. Feel the peace of a room that is clean, quiet, and ready for whatever comes next. Repeat this for 2 more cycles. Welcome the guest, hold the lesson, release the traveler. By practicing this, you are telling the universe that you are ready for your next level of growth. You are showing that you no longer need to be protected by bitterness, because you can transform any encounter into wisdom. You are the master of the guest house. You are the one who remains. As you return to your natural rhythm, notice the sense of peace that comes from a lack of internal conflict. You are no longer fighting the ghosts of your past. You have turned your enemies into your contractors. You have seen that the architecture of your fate is so vast that it requires many different hands to build it. But even as we find peace with the people who have left, we often feel a lingering doubt about the material of our own lives. We look at the mud of our daily struggles, the stress, the chaos, the mundane difficulties, and we wonder if this is truly the right place for a soul to grow. We think that maybe, if we were in a different house, a different city, or a different life, we would finally find our lotus moment. In our next chapter, we will go deeper into the soil. We will explore why the mud of your current struggle is not an obstacle to your awakening, but the very nourishment it requires. We will learn the secret of the lotus, why the soul only grows where comfort ends. Chapter 6. The Lotus and the Mud. The Architecture of Evolution. We have walked a long way together through the halls of your inner architecture. You have honored the golden cracks of your history, learned to trust the silent, invisible seasons of the root, and practiced the grace of the falling leaf. You have stood before the closed doors of redirection, realizing that even the guests who leave your life are essential architects of your soul. Your backpack is lighter now, stripped of the heavy stones of resentment and the desperate need for external validation. You are standing in the center of your own life, perhaps for the first time, looking at the raw terrain that remains. But as you look down at your feet, you might notice that the ground isn't always firm or clean. Often, the path of awakening leads us directly into the marsh. In this stage of our journey, we must address a very specific and subtle mental burden: the comfort trap. In our modern world, we are sold the illusion that peace is the absence of conflict, and that growth should be a comfortable, linear ascent. We are told that if we are stressed, struggling, or feeling the pressure of life, we must be doing something wrong. We treat discomfort like a disease to be cured rather than a signal to be understood. We spend our lives building walls of convenience, trying to curate a perfect existence where the temperature is always right, the path is always paved, and our feelings are always pleasant. But the architecture of the soul follows a different blueprint. The soul does not long for ease, it longs for evolution. And evolution never happens in the stagnant air of the comfort zone. True transformation requires the very thing we try most to avoid: the pressure of the mud. Travel with me now to the edge of a forgotten temple pond. The air here is heavy and humid, smelling of damp earth, moss, and the thick, sweet scent of stagnant water. There are no clear running streams here, no sparkling fountains. At the bottom of this pond lies a thick, dark layer of silt, the decay of 1,000 seasons. It is black, murky, and seemingly devoid of life. Imagine a young seeker named Tenzin. Tenzin had come to the temple seeking purity. He wanted to be like the mountain air, lofty, clean, and detached from the messiness of the world. He spent his days scrubbing the temple floors and his nights trying to clear his mind of any dark or difficult thoughts. One morning, he stood by the murky pond, looking at the black mud with disgust. "Master," Tenzin said to the head monk, who was sitting quietly on a stone bench, "why do we keep this pond? It is filled with filth. It is the opposite of the clarity we seek. Shouldn't we drain it and fill it with clear spring water?" The master didn't look up. He was watching a tiny green stalk just beginning to pierce the surface of the dark water. "Tenzin," the master said, his voice like the low vibration of a bell, "you see only the filth. But look at what the filth is doing. That lotus flower beginning to bloom, where do you think it gets its strength? If I put that lotus in a vase of crystal clear distilled water, it would wither and die in a day. It needs the pressure of the depths. It needs the nutrients found only in the decay. It needs the mud to become the masterpiece." The master gestured to the dark water. "The lotus does not bloom in spite of the mud. It blooms because of it. The mud is the clay from which the flower is sculpted. The more resistance the stalk finds as it pushes upward through the muck, the stronger its fiber becomes. By the time it reaches the light, it is unshakable. And the most miraculous part, even though it rises from the filth, not a single speck of mud clings to its petals. It uses the mud to grow, but it does not let the mud define its beauty." Tenzin looked at his own hands, the hands he tried so hard to keep clean, and realized that his fear of messiness was actually a fear of growth. He realized that the mud of his own difficult emotions, his past mistakes, and his current pressures were not obstacles to his enlightenment. They were the soil. In our lives, we are often exhausted because we are fighting the mud. We experience a period of intense pressure at work or a difficult season in our family, and our first instinct is to try to clean it or escape it. We say, "I'll be happy when this project is over," or "I'll find peace once this conflict is resolved." We treat our struggles as interruptions to our real life. But what if the struggle is the work? Think of the clay in your hands right now. Think of the stress that makes your heart beat a little faster, or the uncertainty that keeps you on the edge of your seat. In ancient wisdom, this is called the raw material of awakening. You are not being punished by the pressure. You are being compressed into something far more valuable. Pressure is the universe's way of ensuring you don't stay a seed forever. If a seed stays in the comfort of its shell, it eventually rots. It must feel the pressure of the moist earth, the breaking of its outer layer, and the struggle of pushing through the soil to find the sun. Modern burnout often comes not from the work itself, but from the resistance to the difficulty. We think we shouldn't be struggling, so we add a layer of judgment on top of the pressure. We say, "I am stressed, and I shouldn't be, so I am failing." This is like the lotus trying to apologize for the mud. Instead, you are invited to stand in the middle of your mess and ask, "What am I being invited to become through this?" When you stop viewing your difficulties as accidents or mistakes in the architecture, you gain a massive amount of energy. You stop trying to drain the pond and start using the nutrients in the silt. Your anxiety becomes the fuel for your presence. Your heartbreak becomes the depth of your compassion. Your confusion becomes the birth of your curiosity. Take a breath now, not to relax, but to feel your own existence. Think of a current pressure in your life, something that feels heavy, murky, or not right. Can you look at it for a moment, not as a problem to be solved, but as clay to be worked with? What quality is this pressure forcing you to develop? Is it patience? Is it boundaries? Is it the courage to speak your truth? If you knew that this struggle was 100% necessary for the next version of you to emerge, would you still be fighting it so hard? Imagine yourself sitting in the mud of this moment, not struggling to get out, but simply growing upward through it. To help you embody this wisdom, let us practice a simple mental alignment. Adjust your posture so that you feel the weight of your body against the chair or the floor. Feel the heaviness of your existence. As you breathe in, imagine your awareness traveling down into the heaviest part of your current struggle. Don't pull away from the tension in your chest or the weight in your stomach. Go right into the center of the mud. Hold the breath for a moment. Instead of fearing this space, imagine that this murky area is filled with the exact minerals and energy you need to evolve. You are absorbing the strength of the struggle. As you exhale slowly, imagine yourself growing an inch taller. Visualize a green stalk pushing up through the water. The mud is still there, the pressure is still there, but you are moving through it. At the end of the exhale, imagine the crown of your head opening like a white lotus petal. You are in the light, but you are still connected to the depths. You are stable because you have mastered the mud. Inhale into the pressure. Hold the strength. Exhale the growth. When you practice this, you change your relationship with stress. You no longer wait for the perfect day to be at peace. You realize that the perfect day is the one where you have enough mud to grow. You are a master sculptor, and the universe has just given you a fresh block of clay. It might feel heavy, it might be cold, and it certainly isn't clean. But it is yours. It is the material of your destiny. As you return to your natural rhythm, notice how your state of being has shifted. You aren't just calm. You are prepared. You have stopped fearing the friction of life because you know that friction is what generates the heat of transformation. You are the lotus, and the pond is your playground. But as we learn to grow through the pressure, we realize that the most profound lessons often don't come from the doing or the growing. Sometimes, the most powerful architect in our life is not the storm or the mud, but the silence. In our next chapter, we will encounter the silent teacher. We will explore why the most important answers to your life's questions aren't found in words or books, but in the space between your thoughts. We will learn how to listen to the architecture of the void. Chapter 7. The Silent Teacher, the Architecture of the Void. You have risen through the mud. Like the lotus, you have used the pressure of your struggles to find the strength to reach for the light. You are standing now in the open air, unburdened by the weight of the past, anchored by your roots, and decorated by your golden cracks. But as you stand in this clarity, you may encounter the most challenging architect of all. It is not a person, a storm, or a closed door. It is the silence. In our modern world, we are terrified of the void. We live in an architecture of constant noise. From the moment we wake up to the moment we close our eyes, we fill every gap with information, music, digital scrolling, or the endless internal chatter of our own minds. We carry a specific mental burden, the fear of emptiness. We believe that if we aren't thinking, we aren't existing. We believe that a room is only useful if it is filled with furniture, and a life is only meaningful if it is filled with doing. But Buddhist wisdom asks us to look at the architecture of a room. What makes a room useful? Is it the walls? Is it the floor? No, it is the space inside. It is the emptiness that allows you to move, to breathe, and to live. Without the void, the room is just a solid block of stone. Your life is the Kung Wei. If your mind is constantly filled with the furniture of thought, there is no room for wisdom to enter. Imagine a vast, ancient forest where the trees are so tall they seem to hold up the sky. Deep within this forest lived a master who was known for his thunderous silence. Seekers would travel from across the ocean to ask him the most profound questions of existence. What is the meaning of life? How do I find peace? What happens after we are gone? A young, brilliant scholar named Sora arrived at the master's hut. Sora had read every book, memorized every sutra, and could debate philosophy for days without stopping. He sat before the master and began to speak. He spoke for an hour about his theories on enlightenment. He spoke about his struggles with the mud and his attempts to fix his cracks. He asked 100 questions, his words tumbling out like a flooded river. The master sat perfectly still. He didn't nod. He didn't frown. He simply looked at Sora with eyes that seemed to contain the entire horizon. Finally, Sora stopped, breathless. "Master," he pleaded, "why won't you answer me? I have come so far for your wisdom. Please, say something." The master slowly picked up a teapot and began to pour. He poured the tea into Sora's cup. The cup filled up, but the master didn't stop. The tea began to overflow, spilling onto the wooden table, dripping onto Sora's expensive robes. "Stop!" Sora cried out. "The cup is full. No more will go in." The master set the teapot down. The only sound was the rhythmic dripping of tea onto the floor. "Like this cup," the master said, his voice a soft echo in the vast silence of the forest. "You are full of your own opinions, your own noise, and your own answers. How can I show you the truth if you have not first made yourself empty? Silence is not the absence of an answer. Silence is the ultimate answer. But you must be still enough to hear it." Sora felt a sudden, sharp clarity. He realized that his constant thinking was just a way to avoid the vastness of the truth. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in his life, he didn't try to find a word. He just listened to the space between the drips of tea, and in that space, he found everything he had been looking for. We are all like Sora. We approach our lives with a cup that is already overflowing. We ask for peace, but we bring our anxiety to the table. We ask for clarity, but we refuse to turn off the television of our minds. We are so busy analyzing our architecture that we forget to live inside it. True wisdom is not something you gain. It is something that appears when the noise stops. Think of the stars. They are always there, even in the middle of the day, but you cannot see them because the sun, the noise of the day, is too bright. You must wait for the darkness, for the quiet, for the sun to set, before the vast architecture of the universe reveals itself to you. Your thoughts are like the sun. They are useful for navigating the world, but they hide the deeper reality of who you are. You are not the person who is thinking. You are the silent space in which the thoughts are happening. Let us practice entering that space together. This is not a meditation to blank your mind, but to notice the architecture of the gap. Sit very still. Let your breath be natural. First, notice a sound in your environment. Perhaps it is the hum of a machine, the wind outside, or the sound of my voice. Don't label it, just hear it. Now, pay attention to the silence that exists behind the sound. Every sound is born out of silence, and every sound returns to silence. The silence is the canvas. The sound is just a stroke of paint. As you breathe in, imagine you are breathing in that silence. It is cool, vast, and steady. As you exhale, imagine your thoughts are like birds flying away from a tree. Let them go. Don't follow them. Just stay with the tree, the silent center of your being. Ask yourself, who is the one listening to the silence? Don't look for a word. Just feel the answer in the gap. In this state of wakeful quiet, you realize that you don't need to fix anything. The architecture of your fate is already complete. The cracks, the roots, the falling leaves, and the mud, they all exist within this vast, silent space of your awareness. When you are silent, the world speaks to you. The trees tell you about patience. The wind tells you about letting go. The void tells you that you are infinite. This is the state of no mind. It is not a mind that is empty of life, but a mind that is finally at rest, no longer exhausted by the need to know, to judge, or to control. You have walked through the halls, and you have found the center. You have seen that nothing in your life was a coincidence, because everything, even the noise, was leading you back to this silence. But the journey does not end in the silence. We must eventually walk back out into the world. How do we carry this architecture of fate into our daily lives? How do we remain a masterpiece even when the world tries to break us again? In our final chapter, we will bring all the pieces together. We will explore the lasting peace and the power of simplicity. We will learn how to live as a light unto ourselves. The final chapter, the power of non-doing. We have reached the heart of the sanctuary together. You have traveled through the rain, the mud, and the deep, ringing silences of the forest. You have looked at the blueprint of your life and realized that the jagged lines and the sudden stops were not errors in the design, but the very features that give your architecture its strength and its soul. Take a moment now to simply be with that realization. As we prepare to step back into the world, there is one final skill to master. It is perhaps the most counterintuitive lesson of all. It is the power of non-doing. In our modern life, we are taught that to fix a problem, we must act. To find peace, we must meditate harder. To understand our lives, we must analyze them until we are exhausted. This is the mental burden of the fixer. We treat our consciousness like a machine that needs constant maintenance. But ancient wisdom speaks of a state called no mind. This is not a blank, empty void. It is not a state of being checked out or drifting into sleep. Rather, it is a mind that has finally stopped its exhausting work of thinking about thinking. It is a mind that has stopped judging every moment as good or bad and has simply started to observe. Imagine a large bronze bell that has just been struck. If you grab the bell with both hands to stop the vibration, you stifle the music. You create tension, but if you simply let the bell be, the sound ripples out, eventually settling into a silence that is rich, vibrant, and alive. Your life is that music. Non-doing is the act of letting the vibration of your existence unfold without trying to grab it, change it, or force it into a different key. When you stop doing your life and start being your life, the architecture finally settles, the dust clears. You realize that you don't need to find clarity, you are clarity. Before we conclude our journey, I want to leave you with a small, secret key. Let us call it the lesson of inner minimalism. We often think that to be wise, we must add more knowledge, more experiences, more spiritual techniques. But the architecture of fate is often revealed not by what we add, but by what we remove. Living with inner minimalism means choosing to listen to the whispers of destiny rather than the shouts of the world. The world is noisy. It shouts about status, about what you lack, and about who you should be. Destiny, however, whispers. It speaks in the language of synchronicities, those strange coincidences that feel like a warm hand on your shoulder. It speaks in the gut feeling that tells you to turn left when the map says go right. To hear these whispers, you must declutter your internal landscape. You must realize that you don't need to carry every opinion, every news cycle, and every past regret in your active mind. When you simplify your inner world, you become a high-resolution receiver for the universe's guidance. You start to see that you are being moved by a current that is far more intelligent than your anxious thoughts. Take a long, slow breath now, and look back at the ground we have covered. Think of your inner landscape as it was when we began. It was perhaps a bit cluttered, filled with the echoes of why me, and the heavy fog of uncertainty. Now look at it again. You have seen your cracks, and instead of shame, you see the gold of Kintsugi. You have felt your roots, and instead of the frustration of delay, you feel the strength of the bamboo. You have watched your leaves fall, and instead of loss, you feel the grace of the oak. You have stood at the closed door, and instead of rejection, you feel the excitement of redirection. You have hosted the guests of your past, and instead of bitterness, you feel the wisdom of the teacher. You have sat in the mud, and instead of filth, you see the nourishment of the lotus. And finally, you have entered the silence, and instead of fear, you have found the architecture of the void. Your landscape is no longer a site of wreckage. It is a masterpiece of resilience. I invite you now to participate in one final ritual of the mind. Imagine that heavy backpack you've been carrying. Feel its weight on your shoulders one last time. In your mind's eye, reach inside. Take out the stone labeled guilt. Take out the stone labeled unmet expectations. Take out the heavy lead weights of should have and could have. Leave them here, on the floor of this sanctuary. They do not belong to the version of you that is walking out of this door. Now, look at the bottom of the bag. There is a soft, warm light glowing there. This is the light of your own presence. This is the gold we have been gathering throughout this hour. It weighs nothing, yet it provides everything. It is the light of the architect. Close the bag. It is light now. It feels as though it is floating. In a few moments, the music will fade, and you will return to the active world. You will see your phone, your tasks, and the faces of the people in your life. The challenge is not to stay in this sanctuary forever. The challenge is to be the sanctuary wherever you go. When tomorrow brings a delay, remember the bamboo. When tomorrow brings a no, look for the hidden path. When tomorrow brings noise, return to the gap between your breaths. You don't have to try to be peaceful. You simply have to remember that you are the architect. The world may provide the weather, but you provide the structure. The universe provides the blueprint, but you are the one who chooses to live in the light. Before we say our final goodbye, I want to hear from your soul. We often call things coincidences because we don't yet see the threads connecting them. I invite you to share in the comments. What is one coincidence or detour in your life that you now realize was actually a sacred alignment? Or, if you prefer, simply tell us which stone you are leaving behind in the sanctuary today. By sharing, you help build the architecture of this community. You show others that they are not walking this hidden path alone. And now, as you prepare to step back into the flow of time, receive this blessing. May you walk with the steadiness of the mountain and the fluidity of the river. May your cracks always be filled with gold and your silences always be filled with truth. May you recognize the face of a teacher in every stranger and the hand of grace in every closed door. You are not a mistake. You are not an accident. You are a deliberate, beautiful, and eternal piece of the architecture of fate. You are the architect. The universe is the plan, and all is well. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your journey. Go now in alert stillness and be the light you have uncovered. Until we meet again in the quiet.